On June 1, 2026. A quiet American town was about to experience one of the darkest days in its history. The town was Muscatine, Iowa. A community of roughly 24,000 people sitting along the Mississippi River. A place where families knew each other. Where children attended local schools. Where most residents believed they lived far away from the kind of violence that dominates national headlines. But by the end of that afternoon, 6 people would be dead. A family would be destroyed. And an entire community would be left searching for answers. What began as an ordinary Monday would end as a tragedy that shocked the nation. Shortly after noon, emergency calls began reaching authorities. Police were dispatched to a residence in Muscatine after reports of a serious incident. When officers arrived, they discovered a horrifying scene. 4 people had been fatally shot inside the home. The victims showed no signs of life. The house that once held a family had suddenly become a crime scene. Investigators immediately realized they were dealing with something much larger than a routine homicide. The suspected shooter was gone. And nobody knew where he might be heading next. As officers secured the area, a citywide search began. Authorities quickly identified the suspected gunman as 52-year-old Ryan Willis McFarland. What happened inside that home? Why had 4 people been killed? And where was the suspect now? At that moment, nobody knew. But the worst part of the story had not yet been discovered. As police searched for McFarland, new information started to emerge. Investigators learned there might be additional victims. The violence was no longer confined to a single house. This was becoming a series of crime scenes scattered across the city. Officers followed leads. Witnesses were interviewed. Evidence was collected. And then another grim discovery was made. A 5th victim was found. Not at the original residence, but at another location in Muscatine. Soon after, a 6th victim was discovered. This time inside a business. The scale of the tragedy was becoming clear. 6 victims. Multiple locations. 1 suspected gunman. According to investigators, all 6 victims were believed to be relatives of the suspect. This was not believed to be a random act of violence. It appeared to be something far more disturbing. A family annihilation. The destruction of an entire family by one of its own members. Meanwhile, police were still searching for the suspect. The city remained on edge. Residents watched news updates. Parents called loved ones. Rumors spread rapidly across social media. People wanted answers. But investigators were still racing against time. Then, the search came to an end. Authorities located Ryan Willis McFarland on a riverfront trail near a pedestrian bridge in Muscatine. Officers approached him. For a brief moment, there was hope he could be taken into custody. Hope that investigators would finally learn what had happened. Hope that the victims' families might receive answers. But that opportunity never came. According to police, while officers were speaking with him, McFarland took his own life. Emergency personnel attempted life-saving measures. But it was too late. The suspected gunman was dead. Just hours earlier, 6 other lives had already been lost. Now the person believed responsible was gone as well. And with him, many of the answers investigators hoped to uncover. As news of the tragedy spread, shockwaves moved throughout Iowa and beyond. The case immediately attracted national attention. Not only because of the number of victims, but because of the relationship between the victims and the suspect. People struggle to understand crimes like these, because they violate one of the most fundamental expectations of human life. Family is supposed to be a place of safety. A place of trust. A place of protection. Yet in family annihilation cases, that trust is shattered in the most devastating way imaginable. Investigators soon announced that preliminary evidence suggested the shooting stemmed from a domestic-related dispute. However, authorities did not immediately release specific details about what triggered the violence. The motive remained unclear. Questions continued to grow. What happened inside the family? Was there a warning sign? Could anything have prevented this tragedy? At the time of the investigation, those questions remained unanswered. As detectives processed multiple crime scenes, the community began mourning. Local leaders expressed disbelief. Residents gathered to support one another. Schools prepared crisis counselors. The impact was especially painful because 2 victims were students and 2 others were connected to the local school district as employees. For classmates, teachers, friends, and neighbors, the tragedy felt deeply personal. Every victim represented a life suddenly taken, a future erased, a chair left empty, a voice that would never again be heard. Muscatine Police Chief Anthony Key struggled to describe what had happened. At a press conference, he referred to the shootings as an act of evil. Those words echoed throughout the community, because many people simply could not comprehend the scale of the loss. Investigators continued examining evidence. Crime scene technicians worked across multiple locations. Detectives conducted interviews. Forensic teams analyzed every detail. The goal was simple: reconstruct the timeline, understand the motive, and provide answers for the families left behind. Yet one challenge remained. The only person who may have known exactly why this happened was gone. Cases involving murder-suicide often leave investigators with gaps that can never be fully closed. Documents may provide clues. Witnesses may offer insights. Evidence may reveal patterns. But sometimes the central question remains unanswered. Why? Why would someone destroy their own family? Why would a dispute escalate into unimaginable violence? Why would 6 lives be taken in a single day? These questions are often what haunt communities long after the headlines fade. As the investigation continued, residents of Muscatine attempted to return to normal life. But normal life had changed. Every neighborhood felt different. Every news update carried weight. Every conversation returned to the same subject: the shootings, the victims, the family that no longer existed. For many people, the tragedy served as a reminder that violence can emerge even in places considered safe. Communities often believe horrific crimes happen somewhere else. In another city. In another state. To another family. But tragedies like this demonstrate a difficult reality. Violence does not always announce itself. Sometimes it develops quietly. Behind closed doors. Hidden from public view. Until one day, everything changes. As investigators work to understand the final hours leading up to the shootings, national media outlets continued covering the story. Experts discussed family violence. Mental health professionals discussed warning signs. Criminologists examined patterns found in family annihilation cases. And Americans across the country followed every update. Yet despite all the analysis, the most important fact remained unchanged. 6 people lost their lives. 6 people who had families. 6 people who had friends. 6 people who expected to wake up the next day. Their stories mattered. Their lives mattered. And their absence would be felt forever. Today, the investigation remains a reminder of how quickly life can change. One ordinary Monday afternoon became a day of unimaginable loss. A family was destroyed. A community was traumatized. And a city was forced to confront a tragedy it never expected. Long after the news cameras leave, the people of Muscatine will continue living with the aftermath. The memories. The grief. The unanswered questions. And the hope that something like this never happens again. Because behind every headline, behind every police report, behind every statistic, there are human beings. Real people. Real families. Real lives. And when those lives are lost, the consequences ripple far beyond the crime scene. They spread through neighborhoods, through schools, through friendships, through entire communities. The Iowa family annihilation case is not just a crime story. It is a story about loss. A story about grief. And a reminder of how fragile life can be. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary informative, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss future true crime documentaries and breaking crime investigations. Also leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on this case and which story you would like covered next. Until next time. Stay informed. Stay aware. And stay safe.